Raising the Roof, presented by the Central Indiana Realtist Association, a local chapter of the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. Our mission is to build wealth through home ownership by enhancing economic development. We accomplish this goal by informing, advocating, and educating in the communities we serve. And now, Raising the Roof.
Welcome and thank you for joining us as we're Raising the Roof. I'm Priscilla Russell.
And I'm Dolores Kennedy. It's Black History Month and we're raising the roof for those trailblazers who made generational wealth through home ownership possible.
So sit back, watch, and learn as we celebrate Central Indiana Realtist Association's Moments in Black History.
Our next interview will be with Daisy Lloyd, Mrs. Daisy Lloyd. And Mrs. Lloyd, we are so happy to have you to be part of our Trailblazer Recognition event.
I'm honored to be here.
Thank you, thank you, thank you again. For those who don't know, Mrs. Lloyd is really one of the first when it comes to the real estate professional industry. So what we're going to do is just take a minute and just say or ask, who is Daisy Lloyd? And give us some background about you and how you eventually got into the real estate industry, if you would.
Well, I'm a farmer's daughter.
Okay.
I was born in Kansas and then raised in Topeka, left Topeka at 17 to go to Howard University in Washington, D.C., and never went back home. And so, and that's where I met my husband, finished Howard, and then we eventually came to Indianapolis. He was urged to come here because at the time black physicians weren't allowed in the hospitals because they had to be board certified in a specialty, and he was, so we came here. I spent the first few years raising my children and then was approached by the Democratic Party here to run for political office as a member of the General Assembly. There had never been any black people or women in the legislature before, and so I ran, was successfully elected, and at that time there was a movement going on to expand the highways, and in order to do that, they were cutting through African American neighborhoods, taking homes in our best areas, and that then meant there was a disruption for our people, for my people, in terms of trying to get a fair price for their property and using that money to find adequate housing elsewhere. And the program, it was going, but black people were not fairly treated.
All right.
So after my term in the legislature, I decided to enter real estate.
Hello, I'm Dolores Kennedy, broker owner of B&K Real Estate Services, where helping you buy or sell your home is what I do. Call me. You see the number. Call me.
After my term in the legislature, I decided to enter real estate. And I was able to get my designation, through some training, and started my practice with Bill Ray, who was a very prominent black real estate broker. And at the time, our offices were in the Walker Building, which still stands as a historic,
Yes.
And I worked with Bill until I had the time required to become a realtor. And then I went out on my own. I moved to the north side and began the difficult job of trying to gain access to good listings in good neighborhoods for black people. And I say we because I had staff, we were fairly successful at that because we were very aggressive. We would ask the owners of the property after the listings were expired if we could show the properties. And in doing that, we did get African American people in neighborhoods where they had never been. And then once we started that approach, they typically, you know, a dollar is green, and some of the major real estate white brokers then began to loosen up their restrictive attitude towards black people. We did a phenomenal job, and I say that because I'm so grateful because I wanted my people to see what they really deserved when they were purchasing a house, which is by far the most important purchase we ever make. And so we offered limousine service. I hired a driver. We had a first-class office with original paintings because I wanted, especially young people, to see what living is all about, rather than just a house. It has to offer good services, and then what the house itself can be. I don't know if I make much sense, but
you are.
And so then that was what I did, and I started in 1966, I believe, yeah, and then I found that I was counseling, because there's a whole notion of living that is directly related to where you buy a house.
Yes.
And often people would come in to sell, and it would be following a death or a divorce. And I would say to them, you know, let's not sell right now. Let's take a look and see how you're going to feel in 6 months. And then come back. And go home and clean out your drawers and paint the house and keep yourself busy. And that worked well. And it got to the point where clients were coming in not to necessarily buy a house, but they were coming in to ask me to help them with their problems. And that was over, I guess around 79, I saw a lot of that. And then I decided, and we had really been, I mean, I felt that we were as successful as we could be. And after my experiencing the counseling with would-be clients, I decided to go back to school. And I did that. I got a master's in counseling from Butler. And then I went back to Purdue and got a PhD in marriage and family therapy. And it all came from real estate. What I did was to turn over my practice, my real estate, yes, to my daughter.
All right.
And the other great thing I think that we were able to do was to bring young black men and women into the business, let them see firsthand what it was like, work there. And in working there, they were able to get the knowledge and the training they needed to get their license. So there are a number of young people that I am delighted to say got their start with me. And that's basically my story.
This sounds like a wonderful story. A couple of things I might want to ask you. You made a comment that your office was on the north side.
Right.
And so I'd like to know where that office was. And when you were knocking at people's doors about the listings, wanting to see, when they had expired, what neighborhoods did you pretty much, you and your staff, what neighborhoods were you pretty much selling?
You mean selling?
Everything, yeah,
Oh.
the whole listing, selling. I mean, when you list, obviously the house
Right,
gets sold.
right.
But what were the neighborhoods? And I know I'm asking a couple.
No, that's okay.
Okay, I know I'm asking a couple of questions, but I want to get to the point of also where you had challenges when you were showing in different neighborhoods, if you would.
Right. First of all, I only showed good properties in good neighborhoods,
Such as?
Crow's Nest Drive, Avalon Hills, North Meridian Street. Well, let's see. I guess the main areas on the north side, I sold properties on the south side to Salvation Army officers when they would come in town because they wanted that neighborhood. And by the way, I had a mixed clientele in terms of buyers. And first of all, my office was at 3954 North Illinois, which is part of that shopping strip there. And contacts such as one of my former friends owned a farm which was off of Kessler Boulevard North. It was called Hidden Acres. It was a stable, a horse stable. And my children wanted to take riding lessons and couldn't. Well, as it turned out, he asked me if I wanted to list the stable. And I said yes, and I bought it. I bought the stable. And the neighbors in that area, when they found out it was a black person who bought it, they formed a organization whose purpose was to defend the area against crime, which was ridiculous, but that's what happened. And but no, there were never any incidents, and I continued the stable as it was, Now you asked me about showing properties.
Yeah, in certain neighborhoods where you felt the resistance.
And let me share that. What would happen, and this was my approach. I would have a white family come in to buy a house, and I would take them in the neighborhood, of course, where they wanted to go, show the house, and then I'd turn right around and call back for a second appointment and show it to a black family. Now, sometimes that worked, and sometimes it didn't, because in more than one instance, the owners would slam the door in our faces. To say that it was difficult, yes, but I never let that deter me, because we kept pushing. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
Definitely the challenges. And I see how you got past those challenges with the rest of the story that you have shared with us. Well, I'm just thinking, just simply because wishing that I certainly had known you when I first got into the business. Just what you share with me even so far has certainly, definitely enlightened me and means much to me in my heart. So I guess what I'd like to say, just maybe parting words with you, Mrs. Lloyd, what would you be the takeaway? What would you like to leave with the audience, the real estate industry, no matter what? Something that we can, take home and just dwell on.
Well, you probably want me to do it in 1 minute. I'm going to take 2.
You take as long as you want.
No, one of the things, and this was major, was opening up the multiple listing organization, MIBOR.
Yes.
That was major. And it wasn't necessarily easy. 5 years in the business was required to apply as a realtor. You know, that's the major organization. I had just gotten into that area of having been in business 5 years. I wasn't able to encourage or I wasn't able to, I had to do it alone, I'll put it that way. And so when I first applied, I was turned down. And then I put the message out that if I was turned down again, I would serve an injunction, I would sue the organization and stop all sales of any properties. And I just sent that back that was my message back, and I was invited to apply again, and I was accepted.
So you've taken my breath away.
Hello, I'm Shelley Specchio, CEO of MIBOR Realtor Association. We support the mission of the Central Indiana Realtist Association to improve the quality of life for the underserved and enhance the economic development for the community. At MIBOR, our leadership in economic and community development efforts directly impact the strength of our communities and promote the importance of homeownership for all. Learn more about how realtors strengthen our communities at mibor.com.
On behalf of CIRA, Central Indiana Realtors Association, we invite real estate professionals to join us at our monthly meeting, first Wednesday of each month at MCL Castleton, 11:30 a.m., where our mission is advocating, informing, and educating. Our vision is building wealth through homeownership. See you there.
So you've taken my breath away. So you are saying that at that time, when they started the Board of Realtors organization, you were not allowed, even after 5 years, even though that was the requirement.
Right.
And then number two, you made a comment just before we started talking. Tell us about the Realtors, when you became a Realtist and how that came about.
Well, the Realtors, of course, was the only organization available for black brokers. And I joined, and then what was exciting for me, I got to know the national, I think he was the national chairman of the Realtist organization in Washington, D.C. And can't remember his name now, but I went to Washington to their national conference.
Yes.
And I was so impressed with the ability of that group. And well, it's like you feel like you come home, you know? And it was a wonderful meeting, and I came back. I was a member, but most of my energy was spent in trying to open up housing. But it was a wonderful organization, and I stayed in touch with the executive there in Washington, and of course, with the members of the real estate group here, because we did deals together.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
And were it not for that organization, as black brokers, as black real estaters, we would not have had a place. And like all organizations primarily established for black people, we have to have that because we are not totally accepted into the white groups until. So in the meantime, we support one another.
So would you say that's your word of wisdom, is to support one another?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I can't stress that too much.
Mrs. Lloyd, you have been such an inspiration to me on this interview. And we so thank you, thank you, thank you. And I will see you at the award. You can skip that. Do whatever you need to do. But anyway, just thank you again.
It's my pleasure.
All righty.
My pleasure.
Okay,
Thank you.
that was so outstanding to me. I mean, I've got tears in my eyes. I truly do. You don't know what you've done. I mean, I just don't have any words. I just don't have any words. And I'm so glad this turned around to even talk about the realtors, because see, I heard you say that earlier. And that's why we know how important this organization is. And we're going to use this interview to our association, because nothing helps. It's just like anything else. You can tell somebody something all day long, but if you haven't experienced it, So anyway.
Well, the work, I get, and this is sort of an aside.
Yes, ma'am.
But the most important work I have ever done, it's one of the most important things, was bringing together black women to form a support group. And from that, we were able to come together once a month and share, support, and bond. I see black organizations in that light, and I certainly believe that the realtors and then all of the boards that are formed for the support of black people, it's our support.
Hi, I'm Priscilla Russell, your team with Hustle with United Real Estate. We've been serving Indianapolis area for over 37 years. We help our clients build generational wealth through home ownership. When you need a home or you need to sell a home, please call us at 317-872-SELL.
I'm Robbie Williams, a recipient of the Trailblazer Award last year. I'm interviewing Norm McLean. He is the son of Eugene McLean. Norm and I have had a brother-sister relationship ever since his dad hired me in 1977 when I went to work for him. However, there was a lawsuit that had been filed against the company because an agent had discriminated against them while showing properties. And so the lawsuit was filed. Gene McLean was embarrassed and shocked because he has always embraced diversity. After that case, Gene McLean had every agent that came to work for them to sign a statement, this is in the hiring policies, that if they discriminated against anybody, that the errors and omission insurance for the company would not cover them. I would like to ask you, Norm, what challenges or adversity did your father encounter for his positive actions?
He never shared the bad things with me. That was just the way he was. My brothers and sister and I were raised to believe that there was no one better than us and that we were better than no one. And I know secondhand that there were some people that did not go to McLean Matthews because they weren't going to sign that agreement. And I know that some of the competitors used that agreement against him in recruiting. But I've always assumed, and I guess Dad must have too, that those weren't the agents we wanted.
You have been a broker owner, as a matter of fact, of Remax you were, and how do you handle segregation issues that would come up, if such.
It's interesting, of course, when I got in the business in '74, the segregation issues typically were a black-white phenomenon. And I can't say, honestly, that I had any of my agents that I ever really even felt were discriminated. The Russian proverb is a fish thinks from the head, and if the head doesn't believe in discrimination, then the rest of the fish isn't supposed to either. S.U. Dillon came out with a ruling for citywide busing, and so there was supposedly the white flight and so forth. Well, you know, we pretty well survived that. We don't want to forget it, because we sure don't want to repeat it. But then it was Hispanics 20 years later. And I got threatening phone calls from members of the public because I had an agent who was Hispanic who put a message on the message board in Spanish. And I got we'll say it was my hat handed to me. And now it doesn't seem to change that radically. It's just the players. There was a sign in Perry Township that said "No more chin," and we have a large influx of Burmese, and I don't see any difference. It's hard for some people to accept something that's not the same as them, and yet we've wound up with a beautifully diversified community that I know my children and grandchildren, and I have a great-grandchild, they're all going to benefit from.
Wonderful. Norm, what advice would you give for broker owners in reference to diversity issues?
Assuming that diversity is going to take place on its own is a mistake in one fashion or another. None of us have to look back too far to see that there was some discrimination against our families or our ancestors, whether it was class or race or income.
Congratulations, really, on for your dad, because, as I said, he accomplished a lot as well, and just for the fact that he was so much for diversity and encouraged.
He's smiling at us right now just because we're sitting here talking.
Yes, yes.
Thank you, Robbie.
Thank you.
On behalf of CIRA, Central Indiana Realtist Association, we invite real estate professionals to join us at our monthly meeting, first Wednesday of each month at MCL Castleton, 11:30 a.m., where our mission is advocating, informing, and educating. Our vision is building wealth through home ownership. See you there.
Raising the Roof, presented by the Central Indiana Realtist Association. Brought to you by First Merchants Bank and Union Savings Bank. Fridays at 11:30 a.m. only on WHMB TV 40.